Alrighty, so what we have here is, this is called the earth box, I think, and it was designed to be a wick system, but we took out most of the stuff, and basically what we have here is a gardening tray that's going to have a reservoir of water always in it that's a couple inches tall, which is perfect for the carnivorous plants because they like to be sitting in water always. So I have here a mixture of peat moss and pumice. It's about no more than 20% pumice, mostly peat moss. And it's already thoroughly saturated, as you can see. So we're just going to fill this up. After I get this all full, I'm going to show you guys how we divide sarracenias, the carnivorous plants, otherwise known as pitcher plants, the American pitcher plant. This is going to make a nice bog garden for them. That's enough soil. A little too much, so add some stuff. So here I got a sarracenia plant that has been growing in this 2-inch pot for probably 2 years and really needs to be divided. So pop it out of the container, and what I do is I got a bucket of water here just to shake off some of the media. I'm going to pull some of it off, trying to be delicate. Sphagnum moss is a little bit harder to pull off because it's long fibers that gets interwoven in there. Let's try to shake off a little bit. And then what I do is I just pull it from the middle. And we're going to break it up into some pieces. And then continue to try to shake off the media. So you can see these are individual rhizomes here. We can break them up into as many pieces as we want. Sometimes I'll leave a couple of pieces just to try not to disturb it too much. Inevitably, some of the stuff's going to break. Can't be scared to do it. You're actually helping the plant. So I could break this down a little bit more, but I think it's okay here. And so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut off all last year's pitchers. That way we're making room for the crown. So right now, it looks like nothing could possibly grow from this, but I'll tell you, in a couple of weeks, these things are going to be going nuts. So I make a hole for the roots because I want the roots to go down as far as possible. I don't want to just cram them up on that because I want them getting down into that water well. So push the soil around it. Then I kind of raise it up like this to get it to the height that I want it to be. Okay, so that's kind of where I want it to be. And then we just keep on repeating that until the whole box is filled. Here, you can see a nice example of the rhizome and some nice white healthy roots. Something else to consider when you're planting a plant that grows from a rhizome is you want to look in which direction the rhizome's growing. So we can see that it's growing in this direction. So what you wouldn't want to do is plant it up against the side of your pot this way, because it's just going to get jammed into the side of the container. So we want to turn it and have it growing this way. I'm going to put this one here in the corner, but I'm going to have it facing out. And again, you want to keep that crown above ground so that it's getting light until you've got some more leaves on the plant. That's where all the photosynthesis is taking place. Pulling off all the dead leaves, and this one here doesn't have any flowers, but when you're doing this, you want to make sure that you're not cutting off any flower stalks, because obviously those are desirable. This one hasn't started to put out any flowers yet, so we don't have to worry about that. So I'm just going to keep on repeating this, and then when I'm all done, what I like to do is throw some live sphagnum on top. What that does is make it so that when you water the plant, you don't get so much erosion. So we got some tiny ones here, but they'll still be good. This is going to be a big one, but I feel like if I try to separate it, I'll probably do a bunch of damage. So I'm just going to leave this one just the way it is. Just take off all last year's pictures and try to remove the weeds before I replant them.
And do lots of weeds grow in with the pitcher plants? Or they can?
They can. You know, the soil isn't fertile, so you're not going to get too much stuff growing in it. But some low-level plants like grasses and stuff, they will grow in it. So I hate all the perlite on top, but when I wash it off, when I do the first watering, all that'll come off. So you can see this is a complete, you know, sogging wet soil. This container doesn't really drain very well. There's only a couple holes on it, so that there's not excessive water. And that's exactly what these plants like. They're one of the few plants that like to be sitting in such a muck of soil.
They want a bog-like situation.
Yes. And this is what they're naturally growing in the wild, is peat bogs. General hydroponics stuff down there. He was just there.
They were probably loading those up when I was there.
They got a new facility now in Santa Rosa. Were you in Santa Rosa or were you in Sebastopol?
Santa Rosa.
So I'll grab some sphagnum moss and throw it on top.
So the end product, though, will be a full bog, basically, with the moss.
Yeah, I'd say by this summer, this entire container is going to be filled with pitchers. It's going to be hard to imagine that just from these little stumps over here, what's going to come of it this summer. Grab some sphagnum moss and show you how we beautify it. So this is long fibered sphagnum moss, and so peat moss is what's growing on the bottom of the bogs, and then on the top of the bogs you've got the living sphagnum, which this is dried out, but this would be what would be on the top of the bogs. I like to put it on because it makes the containers look much more attractive, and also it stops the erosion from when you're watering. You don't make holes on the top of the containers, and the perlite, well, in this case we're using pumice, which doesn't float, but if you're using perlite, this will stop it all from floating up. So basically I just put a layer of the sphagnum moss on top to cover the peat moss, and make sure that I keep that crown above it. So basically I'll just continue this around the rest of the container till it's all planted with the Sarracenia and then covered with the sphagnum moss, so that there's just the...
And when will you start to see the
plants growing?
Yeah.
These plants are just about ready to go. I basically think by next week there's going to be pitchers coming out on them.
Oh, wow.
You know, if I had them in the greenhouse, they would have already all been going. But next week we're supposed to be getting temperatures into the 80s here.
Okay.
So they're just going to start growing.
I mean, this is growing weather right now,
Yeah.
so you would need to divide these today, obviously.
I could divide them later, but you stress them out a little bit more.
Okay.
You don't want to divide them when you have a flower that's blooming.
Okay, so you want to do them after the dormant stage before they start to take off.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just because, like any plant, you know, if you wait too long, you're going to stress it out. So in the end, what we're going to see over there is just the crowns sticking up and sphagnum. We're not going to see any potting soil at all. And we just made a nice little bog garden for our Sarracenia.
Awesome.
So what you're seeing here is just a small 3-inch pot that I transplanted a rhizome to, and you're seeing the first new pictures of the year come out. So these plants are all ready to grow. You know, within a week or two, it's just going to be nuts here.
Awesome.